All right, everyone, what is going on? Needs more drums back in Accelerando, which is our 12-hour city. And this is episode 4, which means it is the 4th hour of the build. In the last episode, we did a lot of zoning, started getting some people moved in, some businesses established, and actually started generating a bit of an income. At the end of the episode, we actually had a bit of a profit, which was really nice. So this episode, we're going to be kind of focusing on doing some more zoning, expanding the city, but also investing in some important city services. So I think we end up putting down, some police, some fire, a little bit of healthcare, and I think even a little bit of education, if I remember correctly. It's also worth noting that this is the last episode that was recorded before the bike patch. So I actually recorded this literally the night before the bike patch came out. And I kind of wanted to, the reason that I did that is because I wanted to really I know that traffic was going to be a bit of a nightmare with the bike patch, but I wanted to get people, or before the bike patch, that is, and I wanted to get people kind of moving in the city before I had to go back and rebalance everything. And I don't know, I just wanted a reason to get another episode in the books rather than, waiting for the patch to come out. It would have delayed my recording. And I don't know, I liked where the city was going. And I thought that at the very least, it wasn't too far along where I needed to wait until some of the bugs got fixed, like the shopping bug and whatever that was happening before the bike patch. But, I figured that the city was still in an early enough stage to where we can actually do some productive expansion before the patch came out. So what we're doing here is just establishing another highway connection. As you can see, I tried to go back. I think this episode we're going to bounce around kind of all over the place, as you'll see. But this was one of those things, I meant to do it in one of the prior episodes and just never really got around to it. So it was good to finally, say, look, let's get this connection made. It's going to help the traffic flow a little bit, especially given the traffic bugs that are happening at the time of this recording prior to the patch coming out. And so you'll see here again, just doing my little zoning technique of zoning out each of the lots individually. And in this town, I wanted to do something different. I actually zoned the German medium density mixed use buildings. And I don't know, I just felt like I needed a little bit of variety in my region. And I know that this is kind of a coastal map. And I think there's even some palm trees around the coast. But I really, really like some of the European buildings. And so I'm just kind of messing around here and just experimenting with some of the different building styles in some of the different districts and areas of this city. So you'll see even here, I kind of get the inspiration to urbanize this a bit just because of where this bridge is at over the highway. I think this is going to be another little connection point for us. You can see we're starting to develop a little bit of an industrial area there as well. And this isn't the best place for it, to be honest. I'm sort of second guessing myself on why I put this here, to be honest with you. I wanted a place to put the transformer station, and I figured it would be good in a bit of an industrial area. But given the way that the wind direction, this is actually a bad place to put this because it goes to the left, to the left of the screen right now. You'll see the arrows pointing that way, which is where I plan to put a little bit of a town. So over time, I think that's definitely going to get corrected. We're going to turn this maybe into more of like a office park, or some other, maybe like a big postal sorting facility or something can go here. Something that will replace that industry with something a bit more, a bit less dirty and pollution creating, you know what I mean? But yeah, so we'll come back to that area a bit later. But for now, I needed jobs. And that was just a nice kind of open space where we could put down some industry for now as a temporary solution. So I didn't want to cul-de-sac this little town here. So I ended up making that secondary little road. You can see all those cars driving in now at the top of the screen. That wasn't there before. We only had the avenue connection. So I made another connection just with a regular road to avoid completely cul-de-sacing this area. And if you're not familiar with that term, cul-de-sacing is when it means that you have one way in and one way out to a neighborhood or, any kind of area. And you don't want that, right? Because let's say that there was a bad car accident on that avenue, and there was no other way for people to go, you would completely lose access to that whole neighborhood, and to be able, people wouldn't be able to get in and out. So you want to avoid that as much as you can. You always want to have multiple connection points for your citizens to travel. It's just, you know, it's something that you think is common sense, but it's very easily overlooked, especially when you're working with a little bit of like limited space, like I was in that little neighborhood there. But coming back down here to the downtown, just filling in some of these zones, kind of thinking about, you know, how I want to sort of transition this high density area to a bit more of a medium density type district. So you can see here we're putting down some medium density zones, and I think some of the southwest high density, which don't get as tall. So I like those buildings because they're modern, they house a lot of people, and they're a nice kind of bridge between high density and medium density, you know, like vanilla and other types of zones. I love that southwest high density. It's perfect. It's just what you need for a newer district that, you know, is kind of a bit more dense, but not so much where it's like a downtown, right? Kind of coming out of the downtown. So really good fit there. You'll see me kind of go back and forth, popping in some buildings here and there as the demand sort of spikes. But here, again, in an effort to not cul-de-sac this neighborhood, I actually decided to put a little bridge here. And my jury's still out on this. I don't know completely how I feel about it. I'll see kind of the traffic volume in this area, see what happens with it. If it necessitates this being more of a main road, maybe we can, no pun intended, cross that bridge when we get there. Wow, I'm so funny. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things where I do want to try to have multiple points of access for this area. Since this is, you know, a kind of a little bit of its own town, you'll see where we have a pretty good residential development going on here. I like these little cul-de-sacs. You know, I think that looks really natural. And it's kind of a good point to know when to end your little build. But yeah, this is an interesting little town. You know, it has a very German and you know, it's got the UK buildings. It has the German shops there in the square. Just something totally different that I just wouldn't have placed in kind of a normal build. And you know what? I said, you know what, why not? Like, let's just give it a shot, see how it looks. And I do like those medium density buildings. I think that they have a lot of character and they're cool assets. So I figured, you know, might as well give it a shot. And I think here we put down some low density, and we're gonna work in some apartments here too. You can see I just put down some medium density apartments, sort of right by the highway. You know, you envision that this is kind of we have a little bit of a square here with the German buildings, and having some medium density here will allow people to, you know, live close to this area and have access to different stores and things. And you don't really have to worry about driving too far. But there we go. We just put down our first police station. It's the UK police station, the suburban one. I like that asset. It looks really good. Just a cool, like, little brick building. Very suitable for that area. Kind of a nice little, not quite suburban, but still, you know, a little bit lower density than like these downtown areas. But this actually, I thought about this, and I'm second guessing it a little bit. I'm kind of curious. I don't really know exactly what I'm trying to do here. I know what I'm trying to do in the sense, like, I'm saving a placeholder for like a bike trail or something. I kind of want to put some infrastructure here, and mainly the reason behind that is I wanted to not zone directly on this main avenue, this 6-lane road right here. I wanted to keep all the zoning to the side streets and like kind of within this little border. And I got to think about how I'm gonna approach this. I'm not. Now that I'm looking back at it, I actually remembered that I wanted to, there's a section that I zoned, that far left section. You can't really see it now because I'm bouncing all around, but there was a section that I zoned of that downtown that I wanted to actually keep open and serve as sort of like some kind of transit hub. I thought about putting like either like a tram station there or and maybe a little bus terminal and like some bike parking. And so I need to find a place to do that. I think also too, that the closer that I put it to the central train station, the better. And I know I'm zoning out industry and just talking about something completely different, but it's interesting. You know, I feel like you guys have enjoyed hearing me talk about looking back on the build and kind of like what I plan to do differently and what I think works and what I think doesn't. And I think that central train station, that terminal train station in the downtown, I think that's going to be a spot where we need to find some area around there and leave a space for like a big transit center. And I say big, it's not going to be like huge. This isn't like a massive, you know, city, but relatively speaking, right? Something where we can have access to the train station, access to a lot of bike parking, probably, like I said, like a tram station. I do want a tram that goes through the downtown. I think, are they the most practical? Probably not always, but I think that they just look really cool and they add like a nice life to your downtown and to your city. I think trams are just awesome. I just remember when I studied abroad in Sevilla, Spain when I was in college, and they had one tram line that went from the downtown kind of to where like I lived, and actually right by me, I lived by a big bus terminal as well. It was a big bus station, and they had, you know, a bunch of bus lines converged there, and the tram kind of ended there. So you could jump on the tram, take it all the way into the downtown, and it just, you know, being on the tram, it was cool. It went straight through the middle of like a pedestrian road, and it was just fun. It was just a cool feature that you don't see a lot in America. You know, where I'm from, you see cars and maybe some buses, right? Like, and I don't know, it's just cool. Like, I think trams are awesome, so I'm gonna build one. But here, filling in some more of this kind of like little somewhat dense area. I'm envisioning something kind of like, you know, you're out of the downtown, but you're still in the city limits. So a lot of medium density housing, a lot of row housing, probably some, you know, bigger apartments, like the vanilla medium density zones and things like that. As we get closer to, you know, some of those busier areas, like the little town centers, the little commercial districts and things, you're going to see some of those medium density zones kind of popping up, but then giving way to the row housing. And then on this side of the highway, you'll see here I'm trying to set up kind of this other little district that I envision is going to be actually its own little town, so to speak. So what I plan to do here is, I don't do it all in this episode, but what I do plan to do here is, you'll see me lay out these roads now, just get a bit of a grid together. This is going to be just a low density development, kind of work its way up into the hills. Nothing crazy. I just need to know when to end this part of the city, but I felt like this was a really nice buildable space and I didn't want to let it go to waste. I could have just made this all farmland, and that was kind of my original plan, but looking back, I said this is a little bit too big of a space to just have all as farmland. I think we could fit, you know, an actual little suburb here, like its own dedicated town. And so that's what we're doing here. We're just laying out some roads. We're going to fill this all in with actually the North American, just regular vanilla low density. And the reason that I'm using those is because in the bike patch, I found out, you know, before I recorded this, but the patch hadn't been released yet. We're actually getting some new media low density North American and European, I think too, but specifically North American residential, where some of the buildings looked really, really good. And so I want to see if they spawn. That's the only reason that I chose that zone type here, is because I want to see just what it looks like, and I'm just curious. But that space, you might have noticed, between the highway and that avenue that I had just been working off of, I do anticipate that is going to be a good spot for maybe like a little train station, maybe a little medium density district, perhaps a little office park. Like, I do want that to be its own sort of self-sufficient town on the other side of the highway there. So it doesn't, you know, look like we're just kind of splitting up a suburb or something, or splitting up a little neighborhood. You know, I do want it to be a sort of fully functional. We'll probably put like a school and everything over there too eventually, but that'll come in due time. I think the plan is for the next episode, I do want to really focus on the outskirts of the city, believe it or not, and sort of let but part of this being 12 hours is I'm not going to let this just run in the background like some of my, you know, my other city and stuff, like in Grand Keys, when a new patch comes out or something, I'll let the city just run. This one, I'm not going to do that, because I do want to I want to actively build every moment that I'm in the save game, or, you know, more or less, right? So while we're working on the outskirts in the next episode or two, the city will be doing its thing in the background, and hopefully people will be settling in. We'll start to see kind of the unemployment rate stabilize, so we know exactly where we're at. We're going to see people starting to get educated. You can see right here, we just put down this is the high school. This is the modern high school. And I love this asset. It's fantastic. I think right here on the river is a really cool spot for it. We had this awkward space. It was just this big kind of triangular space. I think this is a great spot for something like this. It was a little bit bigger spot. You know, we could we're going to put down the soccer field right here. I've been wanting to use that asset and I haven't used it much yet. And it's a great looking soccer field. You know, it looks like a typical kind of maybe a little bit big for high school with the canopy and everything. But you know what? I know a high school by me that is where I grew up was basically the size of a small community college. It was the one high school for 3 towns, and not 3 small towns. I mean, 3 like regular, you know, suburban towns. I mean, it had a lot of people. So I think stuff like that is pretty cool. But anyway, I know I'm bouncing around here, but it's fun. It's fun to kind of watch this and see what I've done and kind of talk about it. But yeah, I wanted to use this Northeast high school or elementary school. Haven't used this asset yet either. I'm not sold on what I just did here with the parking. I think it looks kind of goofy. I might go back and change, and with this like what am I doing? I'm just plopping stuff down for the heck of it. Nah, this probably isn't the best approach there. I think I need to go back and, you know, maybe zone some homes, do some proper development there. But I did, and then here I thought this would be a good spot to put another school because I wanted to fit a different school in this neighborhood as well. So I ended up plopping down the UK. It's the UK, I think the Suburban Primary School is what it's called, and it's a beautiful little asset. The building is really awesome, and we're just really leaning into the European theme in this town here. I think it's a very cool sort of piece of history, you know, to the city. We got this old town. Speaking of old town, we got some new assets as well. The old town assets, I'm going to put those in this build. I have a spot planned out for them that I was waiting for the bike patch to come out, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, here, you know, just playing with the surface tool to make a little connection there to connect the parking lot to the school. I think that'll be really important. I don't know what to do about that space, like right here. Yeah, I wanted to try to put a cemetery there with the UK church. Just wasn't quite big enough to fit in that space, to fit the church in that space. So gonna have to come back to the drawing board on that and do something a little bit different. But yeah, always bouncing around trying to fill in some of these gaps that I left intentionally, you know, because I want the zones to develop a certain way. And then again here, popping back over, this is where I'm going to start zoning out some low density. And yeah, like I said, the other side of the avenue, like I was saying before, I want to put like a train station there, develop that up a little bit, make it into more of a medium density area. And then it has this transition to these more sparse suburbs, kind of up, getting into the hillside. And then you'll see, like, as we get up there to the hillside, I'll probably start spacing the zones out a little bit more to make it seem like this is really like kind of leaning into the, you know, people have a little bit more space when they live up there. But over here, I kept feeling like I needed a space for more industry because not only was there a demand, I know the demand is kind of not, you know, like the end all be all that you should be following. What I really look at is the unemployment rate, and you'll probably see me pop in and out of the info view a few times, and you probably already have, where I love to notice how much unemployment is happening at a given moment, because I think it's a good indicator of your economy. And, you know, I want to keep that unemployment rate as close to like 5% or less as possible. It's very, very hard in this build to do that right now. I feel like industry is just constantly in demand, and I'm never having enough jobs. And granted, you know, people will get employed by commercial and office as well, but it's just at this state in the game where you don't have a university, you don't have that long-term education pipeline. A lot of people look for like those unskilled labor jobs in industry and things of that nature. So, you know, because that's all they can do, right? They don't have like a college degree and they can't, you know, go work in an office or something. So that leaves like industry. And that's another reason why I want to work on, in the next episode or two, I want to work on the outskirts, because I want to start developing up the farmland and maybe even a little bit of forestry if I find kind of the right spot. I've been really like invested in forestry lately. I've been watching some videos. One of my other interests, if you see in my channel, I always post a lot of like farming simulator and things. And I love, you know, big machinery like that. And it's really, and big industry. You know, I grew up in an area where there was tons of industry. My family had been, you know, working there's a lot of steel mills and like a big oil refinery by us. And my family has been working those jobs in those businesses for generations. And there, to this day, there is that industry is a huge employer for a lot of the area. around there in, you know, Northwest Indiana and even Southern Illinois, or Northeastern Illinois, sorry. But yeah, it's just a really cool thing. And so I kind of want to replicate that when we start designing like our port and a big industrial sector. You know, I want to make those big factories, make those big warehouses, provide a lot of jobs for the area, and that source, you know, that'll serve as a big economic booster as well. Just put down that fire station. Another one of my interests is firefighting. I know I have a ton of interest, but hey, you know, that's just how I am. Again, something that's been in my family for generations. A lot of firefighting family members. My girlfriend's actually a paramedic at a fire department, so a lot of you know a lot of interest in that field and everything. And I love that asset. That I never put that down yet. That was a beautiful building, that big Northeastern fire station just in the downtown. It just looks so historic and so perfect on that corner lot. I loved it. So really looking forward to seeing how the downtown kind of gets built around that. We're going to pop back in, you know, throughout the next few episodes and keep kind of chipping away at certain parts of the downtown once we start getting, you know, like public transit implemented and everything like that. And, you know, we're going to do an episode where we focus on some signature buildings, just all of that stuff. We're going to be popping in and out of the downtown, and it's going to be really, really cool to see what the final skyline looks like. I'm so excited. We're gonna put the skyline in City Skylines, to say the least. It's gonna be beautiful. But yeah, here again, just filling in some of this space. I do intend to develop this riverside a little bit. I kind of want to put down some maybe some bike infrastructure or some trails or something. I do want to make it a very active waterfront. Have some people moving around with some parks, you know, and things like that. Here, I don't really know what I did and why. I don't really know why I didn't connect this roundabout that you see. Like, I just missed that connection right there. Like, what am I doing? But with that being said, we're just about done with the next hour of the build. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you loved or hated anything that I've just built today. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.